Let's see cat!
Hello honeys, I've collected all 40 exclusive Happy Rainbow Coords featured in the mobile game Aikatsu Photo on stage, and I put them all together for you. Enjoy! 40. Pop Candy Wolf. Pop Candy Wolf is very silly, and I want to hold space for that silliness as we go into a very silly brand. But when I compare this coord to everything else on the list, I realize that its oversized silhouette is just not as cute as it could be. I get stuck on the gray fur they chose. I think they could have gone for more vibrant color without losing the big bad wolf reference. 39. New Year Juicy. New Year Juicy has a cuter silhouette but a completely incoherent visual flow. The structure of the dress is lost in the monochromatic orange prints and ruffles, and the sleeves are hard to discern as well despite being such large elements. Your eye can barely make out the purple grapes on the obi, which is meant to be a stronger focal point. 38. Melt Valentine's Day. Melt Valentine's Day resurrects my old enemy, off-palette brown accents. The chocolate theme is noted, but the brown color they've chosen is such a drag on the overall vibrancy of this coord. What was fresh now feels muddy, and it doesn't have to be that way. The white icing on the chocolate brooches on the top and skirt peplum feel a lot more delicate, and they could have used that icing in the main skirt layer's chocolate trim as well to break up the muddiness. 37. Fruit Parlor. I'm not a fan of the concentric circle skirt design in Fruit Parlor, but in an effort to get into a more whimsical headspace, I'm giving it some extra points for complexity. The gingham food service uniform accents aren't motifs I'm particularly interested in, but they do build on the waitress theme successfully. 36. Cookies and Bean. Cookies and Bean is a challenge. I tend to gravitate toward cooler color palettes and prefer primary colors over secondary colors, so I have to work hard to acknowledge the strengths of this design. The consistent use of jelly bean motifs is a good sign for the overall cohesiveness, as is the use of cookie embellishments at varied scales. Colors aside, this is a well executed coord. 35. Tender Candy. Tender Candy offers something closer to my comfort zone with a white base color, but the deconstructed dress concept is a lot to take in. I do think this design works well, and I admire the more avant-garde approach to its structure and silhouette, but it's not a style I'm drawn to very strongly. 34. Rainbow Phantom. Rainbow Phantom is easier to interpret since there's less volume to the silhouette and the references are a bit more obvious. The umbrella-shaped skirt is a cute detail, even if I think the cut is a bit awkward. Other details like the leg warmers, scalloped hemlines, and tiny top hat all stand out as really charming to me. 33. Orange Squash. Orange Squash is another challenging design because of the amount of visual noise it uses. The graphic prints are very eye-catching, and that complicates the visual flow. The silhouette and fruit motifs are very nice though. I think the color palette works fine. If you have a high tolerance for noisy prints, this coord might look even better to you. 32. Blue Sky Rainbow. Blue Sky Rainbow is a design I'd probably be less happy with from another brand. The cupcake silhouette is very exaggerated, but it works for Happy Rainbow's dessert concept. I like the primary color scheme, the consistent ruffle motif, and those tiny puff sleeves. Very graphic, very simple, very cute. 31. Sour Pudding. Don't be fooled by its low placement, I like Sour Pudding a lot. It's light and bright with a nice visual flow and a unique pudding motif. Those leg warmers are a good detail to make the silhouette feel more youthful, and I'm glad they seem to be a staple of the brand. The scattered candy pieces in the skirt peplum look great as well. 30. Pop Star Girl. Pop Star Girl might be on the basic side, but I want to give myself credit for appreciating the color palette. It's very warm, but the desaturated purples make lots of space for the super saturated yellow and orange. The stripes create a consistent vertical visual flow, which is nice, and the ribbons around the legs add a nice contrast with their more organic lines. 29. Pop Ribbon Queen. There are some details I consider off in Pop Ribbon Queen, like the strange check pattern in the skirt and the almost Christmassy palette of the shoes, but overall this is a balanced and cohesive design. The bow choker with trailing ribbons gives the classic silhouette some movement, and I always appreciate effective use of asymmetry. 28. Fluffy Pudding. Fluffy Pudding shares its design with Sour Pudding, and I'm very surprised that the green colorway appeals to me more. It might be a fluke since Sakura's hair color does suit the mint green very well, but maybe the contrast with the red accent color in the corset is coming through for me. Whatever it is, the balance is good. 27. Happy Grandma. I'm continuing to challenge myself and my taste with Happy Grandma. It's another concentric circle skirt design, which I mostly dislike for the horizontal visual flow of the tiered layers, but experimental silhouettes are a big part of Happy Rainbow's charm. The color palette is genuinely appealing to me, and the grandma concept is so silly it's endearing. They've combined the old lady motifs with graphic prints very well. 26. Cider Pom Pom. I'd consider Cider Pom Pom to be on the more experimental side as well, with that extreme ruche skirt design. It has hints of streetwear in the shoes and carnival and marching band motifs in the sleeves, belt, and socks. It's another light and bright color palette which I enjoy, and the shapes in each piece all feel novel without competing with each other. 25. Candy Pop Yukata. You know me, I like a cropped yukata. The shapes and lines are always so iconic in this style, and Candy Pop Yukata is no exception. It does have a pretty simple approach to its patterns, but what might be boring from a pop perspective translates into relaxing from my perspective. I'm a little glad it didn't go all in on complexity. 24. Strawberry Rainbow. No Ichigo bias here, I think Strawberry Rainbow is adorable all on its own. Let's check off everything on my wish list. Pastel primary palette with white accents, check. Asymmetrical details, check. Consistent patterns and motifs throughout each piece, check. Everything looks good here, I just need more complexity and a more defined concept to rank it higher. 23. Ice Pop Taurus. From what I understand, Ice Pop Taurus is a pre-evolution to Lollipop Taurus, and I think that's a blessing and a curse since I do love the motifs it takes from Lollipop Taurus, but by removing the more dramatic elements and minimizing both the prints and shapes that make it work so well, you lose a lot of its charm. I'd definitely consider it a downgrade, but it does retain a good level of textural complexity. 22. Pop Comedian. Pop Comedian gets points for its unique concept. The bowler hat and clown shoes are not details I've ever wished for, but I'm glad they're here. There's just barely enough balance in the color palette for the visual flow to work, but that big orange blob in the skirt is in dangerous territory. The red accent in the bead chains and earrings are pulling a lot of weight to create a coherent visual rhythm. 21. Creamy Pom Pom. Creamy Pom Pom shares its design with Cider Pom Pom, and once again I prefer the green colorway. There are extra details I like better too, for example the flat shoe design and longer stockings, and the overall coord has a slightly more delicate concept. The extra cuteness is very appreciated. 20. Flower Glass. Flower Glass reminds me a lot of Blue Sky Rainbow because of the cupcake silhouette, but this version has more of a classic shape. The pink and yellow palette feels very fresh, which is helped by the orange accents. I like the mix of iconic flower shapes and chunky bead jewelry, and I think the textures all blend together well. It makes me want a glass of lemonade. 19. Happy Sky. I was prepared for the bold colors and prints we see in Happy Sky. It's a very direct use of the rainbow concept, but I think that's what I'm looking for. I like that it's fluffy and over the top, and the rainbow trim is only a little repetitive. I'd even welcome this coord to use a high-low skirt design, just to see what they do with it. 18. Sweet Pooted-in. Sweet Pooted-in shares parts of its design with Fluffy Pooted-in and Sour Pooted-in, but it's meant to be an evolution of those designs. Because of that, it has a fuller skirt and an interesting tutu shape to its peplum. There's also a giant lollipop prop and candy fringe trim on the skirt. It all adds up to a more dramatic design, which I like a lot. The pudding concept is at its best here in my opinion. 17. Sweet Snowman. We covered Sweet Snowman in my Christmas coord ranking, and unfortunately it's a little lower in this list. I adore the holiday motifs, and I think the romper design is adorable, but the color pattern is a bit scattered for my taste. It still looks great and has several novel design choices, it just has a lot of competition. 16. Tree Decoration. Tree Decoration actually ranks higher outside of the holiday context for me because its colors are more pulled together. I like the contrast between the cute fluffy trim and streetwear influence in the shoes, and the decorated Christmas tree skirt is still very creative. The visual flow and silhouette are both very strong in this coord as well. 15. Watermelon Beach Summer. Summery concepts work even better for Happy Rainbow because they can lean into the fruit motifs of the brand, like in Watermelon Beach Summer. It's a little over the top, but I do love the watermelon pleated swim skirt and the cutout shape of the top. All of the mini melon jewelry is a bit repetitive, but it does work well for this concept. 14. Lime Cream Pooted-in. Lime Cream Pooted-in shares its design with Sweet Pooted-in and is an evolution of Fluffy Pooted-in. Surprise, I like the green version better because of the color contrast with the pink accents. The dynamic lines of the ribbon on the lollipop are great in this illustration too. 13. Lemonade Pom-Pom. Lemonade Pom-Pom shares its design with Cider Pom-Pom and Creamy Pom-Pom. It feels like a balance between the more angular shapes in Cider Pom-Pom and the delicate shapes in Creamy Pom-Pom, which ends up hitting the perfect Happy Rainbow balance. It feels youthful, active, and just a little bit elegant. The pastel primary color palette is once again very appreciated. 12. Hopping Cheer. I've talked about my thoughts on cheerleader concepts before. I generally find them very cute, and Hopping Cheer is no exception. The citrusy color palette looks great, and the pink and blue accents help tie in the rainbow motif. It was also a smart choice to use fruit in the jewelry to help tie into the brand concept further. 11. Pop Step Cheer. Pop Step Cheer looks even more in line with Happy Rainbow. It's got a warm, bright color palette, lots of rainbows and candy accents, and the slouchy socks or leg warmers we've seen before. I really love how they've incorporated scalloped patterns in each piece and the use of stripes to direct the visual flow. 10. Happy Fruit Punch. Wouldn't Happy Fruit Punch be a perfect companion dress to Tropical Basket? The large, low-waisted skirt is perfectly balanced by the proportions of the smaller crop top, and all of the fruit decorations are adorable. The skirt's asymmetry also gives the overall coord a great sense of movement. 9. Funny Pop. I wouldn't have expected Happy Rainbow to tie into vintage fashion so well, but Funny Pop's use of old-timey comedian aesthetics is so charming. The hat and jacket lean more formal, which is a nice contrast to the explosion of ruffles and fantastical details in the rest of the design. I particularly love the sprinkle motif in the stockings and skirt. Everything looks so cohesive without feeling too grounded. 8. Excite Pop. Excite Pop leans into the same vintage comedian aesthetic, but commits to it even harder, which I respect. The pumpkin shorts suit the playful tone because they're so youthful, and they also follow the visual rhythm of the jacket's exaggerated scalloped hemline. I think the jacket, vest, and shorts all layer textures and colors very effectively. 7. Fruit Punch Blue. I know 2000s fashion has recently become popular again, but how many of you recognize the 2000s influences in Fruit Punch Blue? The bright colors and oversized graphic fruit prints would feel right at home in 2009. I really enjoy that style, at least for its campiness, and I have to compliment how great the boots look with this silhouette. 6. Happy Puppet. Happy Puppet is another case of me pushing myself outside of my comfort zone to appreciate Happy Rainbow's more eccentric concept. This coord achieves everything it wants to. The vintage comedian look is back, this time with a very exaggerated silhouette and a matching exaggerated hair bow. The color palette and visual flow both feel cohesive, and the big stripe of white formed by the skirt petticoat seems like it's intentionally balanced by the white ruffle cap sleeves. These aren't my favorite prints, but they work well together. 5. Sour Cream Pudding. Sour Cream Pudding shares its design with Lime Cream Pudding and Sweet Pudding, and for once the blue colorway has prevailed. Maybe I'm biased by the cool dynamic pose in the full body art, but I do think the color balance works better. The pink accent in the corset ties into the candy bead fringe on the skirt, and there are just enough hints of that pink throughout the pieces to pull it all together. 4. Pop Police Dog. I love Pop Police Dog so much. Despite the warm color palette and the brown accents, I love a puppy theme. It looks like a conceptual successor to Vivid Kiss's fine drum chord, and for whatever reason the marching band influence fits in perfectly for me. I can't get over the tiny hat with dog ears. The whole design feels so silly and high concept that I can't help but enjoy it. 3. Happiness Candy. I wasn't exaggerating when I said I enjoy cheerleading themes. I adore the active and playful energy of this coord. It has so many colors and patterns, but I appreciate the dominance of a strong blue-orange contrast. There's just a little bit of asymmetry, mostly in the socks and leg wear, and a ton of visual interest that doesn't feel overwhelming. 2. Cloud Magic. Cloud Magic presents a more modern magical girl fantasy concept that I wish Happy Rainbow could have explored more. It's a perfect brand to break out of the realism box and push its concepts into other genres. The layering of patterns and textures is once again very strong here, and the more monochromatic palette helps a lot with cohesion. The bubble trim skirt is the highlight for me. 1. Pudding a la Mode March. I tried to put Pudding a la Mode March in the middle of this ranking at first, but it kept rising up the list. It's by far the most conceptual and the most polished design. Despite the sleek silhouette, it's added a ton of complexity in its proportions and embellishments that all maintain a consistent visual flow. I'm very impressed that they've created the illusion of elegant full-length trousers while also incorporating a flared jacket and pumpkin shorts. Let me know your favorite Happy Rainbow coords in the comments below, and look out for my idol brand swap video in a couple of weeks. Bye bye!
Okay, 何立つ Go!